Hi, this is Bill Stevenson with the Descendents, and you're listening to The Vinyl Guide.
Well, hey everyone, Nate here, host of The Vinyl Guide, and this week we are talking with Bill Stevenson of Descendents, Black Flag, All, and more. Bill is an icon of punk rock. When the history books are written, Bill will no doubt have his own chapter, and today he shares with us stories from across his career, the early and rare records of Descendents, his memories of the pressings, the artwork, the flyers, his recollections from the lawsuit that ruined Black Flag, and heaps more. Now, Bill, alongside the other Descendents, are hitting the road again, playing a crapload of shows across the U.S. and beyond, likely very close to you in the near future. Check out DescendentsOnline.com or Facebook.com/The Descendents for details. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends at GrooveWasher.com. You know, records collect dust, and that interferes with your sound quality. The primary reason we listen to vinyl is because of the sound quality, so maximize your audio experience with the Groove Washer record cleaning system. The Groove Washer system is built around the glorious G2 record cleaning fluid, which is designed specifically for lifting dust and grime out of record grooves and ensuring your listening experience is the best it can be. Groove Washer kits start at less than $50. Pick yours up today at GrooveWasher.com or ask your local record store for a Groove Washer. That's GrooveWasher.com, and they are made in the USA. And now that business is sorted, let's get on to our interview with punk rock legend Bill Stevenson.
Do you listen to and collect vinyl records? Well, you're in luck. Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast made for record nerds like yourself. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Wow, look at this. All right. My fake audience is back. Hi, everyone. Wow, great to see you all. Thanks to those of you who have joined our fake audience and are cramming into the basement right now. Especially those new folks joining us. I saw positive iTunes reviews from MCM and the Monster, Crazy Razzie 71, Mardigan 1976. I saw some great words of encouragement and positive reviews on our Android app in the Google Play Store. So I want to thank Bill Bacard, Gavin Hill, Samuel Garrett, Seamus Gray, Leonard Spencer, Philip Butterfield, heaps more. Thanks, guys, for your kind words. Let's give them a round of applause, shall we? All right, now for those of you who want to be part of our fake studio audience, all you got to do is give the Vinyl Guide a positive review on iTunes or in the App Store or the Google Play Store for our apps, and we'll make sure you have a seat right here. Alrighty, this week we have our third drummer in a row here on the Vinyl Guide. First, it was Mike Portnoy of Sons of Apollo and Dream Theater on episode number 116. Last week, it was Mario Rubalcaba of Earthless, Hot Snakes, and Off. And now, today, it's Bill Stevenson of Descendents, Black Flag, and All. Now, it's a total coincidence, by the way. I'm not just chasing drummers. It's just how it turns out. You know, one of the great things about running your own podcast is that I get to choose what guests, what people I invite on. And I'm only going for my favorites, and when they respond like they have, it's really, really cool. I've been a Descendents fan for years. I did get into them kind of late around the Everything Sucks album, but ever since then, I've been on a mad tear to get all their stuff, plus the band's All catalog. Now, there's a great movie called Filmage, and it came out a few years ago. Go ahead and Google it, or I'll have some links on the Vinyl Guide. It's a documentary on the history of Descendents and All, which are more or less the same band with just different singers, right? And it shows the challenges they have encountered along the way. Bill touches on that today, but if you haven't seen Filmage, I highly recommend you do. If you haven't, you'll still enjoy most of this conversation, but knowing the background on this band will help you understand how important they are and some of the details we cover when talking to Bill. And if you have never seen Descendents live, you gotta catch them as they tour. They just announced a huge list of shows for 2018. You can go to DescendentsOnline.com or Facebook.com/The Descendents to see when they are in your neighborhood. I don't know how much longer they'll tour. You know, they're getting on in years, just like the rest of us, and every so often Milo quits the band. So if you get an opportunity, see them while you can. If you follow the Vinyl Guide page on Facebook, you may recall last year I took my son to see Descendents while they were in Sydney. Now, he was 8 at the time. He and I love this band. It's just great music. It naturally transcends generations. I'm posting some videos up there so you can see the crowd from the show. They were just having so much fun. It was so awesome. Plus, there were a few dozen other parents up there, just like me, who brought their kids, under 10 years old, to enjoy this band. Now, of course, we didn't let them get anywhere near the mosh pit, but they did get a good view of the fun they could have at a show when they get a bit older. So we're about to start our interview with Bill. However, if you like this episode, there's a few other interviews we've had that you may be interested in. Henry Rollins was on the Vinyl Guide episode number 100, and he spoke extensively on the Black Flag years and, of course, the rare records of his career, heaps more. Monty of DFL was on Vinyl Guide episode number 95, talking about the history of that great hardcore band, DFL. Fat Mike of NoFX was on Vinyl Guide episode number 51, again, talking rare records, his collection, and Fat Mike always comes with crazy stories. You never get bored with Fat Mike, that's for sure. Then going way back, episode number 39, we spoke to Meatmen genius Tesco V. So that's always amusing. And more recently, episode number 104 of the Vinyl Guide with Greg Hetson of Circle Jerks and Bad Religion. Heaps of interviews, conversations, and stories from punk rock legends here on the Vinyl Guide. Always free. The best way is with our Vinyl Guide app, which is available in Apple or Google Play stores. Just search for The Vinyl Guide, and you can download that free too. All right, without further delay, here's our interview with Bill Stevenson. All right, so today on the Vinyl Guide, we have one of my favorite musicians, songwriters, Bill Stevenson of Descendents, also of All, formerly of Black Flag. How are you feeling today, Bill?
I'm feeling great. Yeah. How about you?
I'm doing good. Got my cup of coffee. I'm ready to go.
Oh, right. It's morning. It's morning there, right?
It is morning in Australia, yeah.
It's early morning, right?
It's not too bad. It's 7-ish, that sort of thing. I think it's about 1 o'clock in Colorado. Are you still drinking coffee throughout the day?
I am. I about 2 years ago, Milo was kind enough to gift an espresso maker to my family and I. So I have this really cool espresso maker, which is just, contributed to my caffeine addiction.
Now, was that out of the kindness of his heart, or was he keen to go on tour again and he thought that would be the fuel you need?
Actually, what it was, when I was out at his house and we were finishing up the vocals for Hyperspaz, he noticed that I took a real liking to his espresso machine. I would make like 10 espressos and stick them in a big travel thermos, and we would go over to this little basement place where we had the little recording thing set up. And he just noticed that I seemed to be getting as much or more use out of it than he does. So when I got home from that trip, I noticed there was a box sitting on my porch, and sure enough, it was a real nice espresso maker. So it was just a kind act by a good friend.
Wow, 10 espressos, my God. Now, before we move off coffee, we had Charlie Benante of Anthrax on the show, and he's got his own blend of coffee beans, which apparently are what he uses when he's drumming on tour. So a bit of a tip if you're looking for beans.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we have our Descendents coffee that's really bold and really great.
Oh, you have your own blend. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's so good. It's what I use at the house too, and we use it at the blasting room too, at my studio.
Oh, okay.
It's really good.
Far out. I'm going to have to try some of that. Again, I want to talk about Descendents, All, Black Flag. You were really at the epicenter of a great wave of American music. But before we start, what made young Billy Stevenson interested in music? What records did you have in your home? The
first one I remember was Oh, well, the very first one was like the one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. That song, you know that song?
Yeah, I remember that. So I had the 45.
Yeah, and that one, so I had the 45, but this is when I was a little kid. And then the other one was My Friend the Witch Doctor. He told me what to do. My Friend the Witch Doctor. That song, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And those were the first two, the first two. But then on a more serious note, so this would maybe just be a few years later, maybe, who knows, let's say I was 7, there was two. There was that old Black Magic, you know, Louis Prima.
Okay.
And then the one that really killed me, I think at some real early age, it set the tone for like how I would later go about writing a lyric, is the song called "Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town."
Yeah, the cowboy song.
You know
right?
that song?
It's a country song.
Well, it's played in a country manner, but the song and the story and the lyric is so powerful. I used to listen to that, and I just remember the way that it made me feel. It made me feel like, oh, wow, somebody's being open and honest about a situation that isn't always easy to be open and honest about. You know, they're kind of airing their dirty laundry, and it's the kind of thing where it makes you feel uncomfortable but also good at the same time, kind of how the blues work. And I always, that was my favorite song for just years and years and years when I was a kid.
Okay, so you enjoyed the vulnerability of that song.
I sure did. I thought, man, if I just remember when I started trying to write songs, I thought, well, a song should make you feel the way, you know, how maybe the way Ruby Don't Take Your Love to Town, the way it made me feel. You know, a song should take you through that, or at least that's one way to have a good song. But then on the other hand, song, like, you know, we've written songs about farting too, so who knows, right? I guess, you know, different strokes for different folks, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's the great documentary Filmage, which, you know, covers a lot of the story. Well, it covers all the story of Descendents. But there's also this section in there where they apparently you found a bass guitar in your neighbor's trash can. That was your first stringed instrument. Did you have any lessons with it, or did you work it all out yourself?
No, I've never actually had any lessons at anything that I recall, not even swimming lessons. But no, it was, I went to take the garbage can out to the curb, and I noticed there was an instrument sticking out of the can of the neighbor's, and I just went and grabbed it and took it. But Frank, who I started the band with a million years ago, Frank was kind of showing me a little bit. He taught me just the very basic idea of how to strum a guitar, or maybe I just watched him do it. And then I bought that chord book, you know, the chord book that's got like the obvious 100 chords in it. Mm-hmm. It's the first book that everybody buys when they're learning, and that's how I learned. But when I got the bass, for some reason, I found myself writing songs on the bass, which was maybe different, or at least maybe in punk rock it was different. You know, so some of those songs, the main melodic hooks are on the bass, like how Bikeage is, or Myage, or you know, those are the two obvious ones.
Yeah,
and
the bass and the guitar will separate and go through slightly different melodic areas, but they still complement one another. And that's something that is done with music keys and that sort of thing. But that's a language, it sounds like, you really didn't learn, at least in the beginning.
I just you know, I liked playing this bass, and I liked the way it felt when I played melodies on it. And also, we used to go see this band called the Alley Cats. They were one of the, you know, the first wave of LA punk bands, and their bass player, Diane Chai, she played bass with her fingers, and she played a lot of melodies on the bass against the guitar too. And I think Descendents were very heavily influenced by the Alley Cat at a certain point. And we were both Tony and I were bringing in songs that sounded a lot like the Alley Cats. And Frank wasn't. He had his own other thing that he was doing it. But Tony and I were both bringing in songs that had a lot of like that melody in the bass being delivered like in a stream of eighth notes. A lot of the Alley Cats songs had that happening. And we've kept that going all the way through the band. I mean, I could name 50 songs where the bass melody is kind of the central musical hook.
Apparently you worked for Keith Morris's dad at the Hermosa Beach tackle shop. Keith Morris, of course, being the first lead singer of Black Flag and Off and all sorts of other punk efforts. Was that your entry into punk rock?
Yeah, so I knew Keith since I was maybe 9 as a fisherman, and he was always at the tackle store, and I would come in and buy hooks or sinkers or bait. And I was kind of a tackle store. You know, people that like hang out at the record store or hang out at the skateboard shop?
No, I think I am one.
Yeah. So I hung out at the tackle store. I was like a tackle store groupie. And so Keith and I got to be pretty good friends, but I really think I was more just a pesky little kid when I was 9. But we would talk about music, and, you know, we had common grounds because we liked Aerosmith or Kiss or Cheap Trick or Ted Nugent or whatever it was at the time. But he was then showing me things that were like pre-punk rock. So punk rock hadn't quite happened yet, but he was the person that turned me on to, say, the Stooges, for instance, or even something that might not seem relevant to this, but something like the Sweet or Humble Pie or the Faces, but really things, or the Stooges, or or then like some kind of these weird new wave bands like the Flying Lizards. And he was turning me on to this stuff. And then just a few years later, Frank, when I met Frank, you know, to try to start the band, he made me a cassette. The cassette that he made me, he and Dave Nolte from The Last, I think they worked together on this cassette. And it was like 2 sides of a 60-minute cassette, and it had everything from like MC5 songs on it to Stooges to Ramones and Pistols and to the Weirdos, and it was like, wow, okay, so between what Keith taught me when I was really young and then what Frank and Dave taught me when I was a little older, that was kind of how I got ushered into it.
How long were Descendents playing before you recorded the Ride the Wild single?
I suppose 6 months to a year, but I honestly don't remember. I should have a cheat sheet for these kinds of things. Like we're so bad at knowing those things. I mean, we missed our 20th anniversary. We missed our 25th anniversary. We missed our 30th anniversary. We missed our 35th anniversary. We're almost to our 40th. I mean, I suppose we should figure out what that date is and actually do something. But we all just tend to be kind of forward moving. And so we don't take time to look back. I don't even have any photos from all those old tours. Thankfully, you can find that stuff online now. I never took a single picture the whole time I was in Black Flag, for instance. But fortunately, you can find some of that stuff online. Yeah. I forgot what your question was.
The Ride the Wild single. So when you guys came together, you decided to make the 45 after 6 months or so. I
think 6 months-ish.
Yeah. Do you recall it was you guys just pitching in your money yourselves? Was someone else paying for it?
My dad. Oh, my dad.
So he financed it. Do you remember how you got them pressed up or how many were made?
I think we made 500 at first, like 5 little boxes. Mm-hmm. And I just had them in my bedroom. And I mean, we made 500 and we would try to sell them to people at our high school for $2. or $1. I don't remember. Or like if it was a hot chick, we would just give them one, to try to use it as a leverage.
Well, $1 or $2 would have been a great investment. Those records are now worth about $500 each. The cover art with the 3 heads, who did that drawing?
Yeah, Frank's brother, Mike did that.
Okay.
And I don't know. It's interesting because he kind of couldn't get Tony, so he gave up on Tony. Like me and Frank kind of look like how we look, but he didn't get Tony right, which I think, that's what's lame about it, but I think it's also what's kind of cool about it is it's always cool when those kinds of things are really like just these blown out ridiculous caricatures that make no sense.
That record, it was originally, the label of the first one says it was an Orca release or Orca Productions. I was going to ask you what Orca came from, but I noticed
it's just my boat. I just called it after my boat. There was no label. They sat in my bedroom, or we put some in our lockers at school in case someone wanted to buy one or something. Orca was just my boat.
Yeah.
We had no idea what we were doing at all. I still think we don't, but I also think that's what I love about it.
There was the original Orca release, and then later that year, it came out on Pacific Records. A few years later, it was on Pizzicato Records.
Well, that was the Pacific Records. That was a short-lived little like mail order distribution thing that we were trying with someone that was trying to manage us at the time for a minute. But that was actually in 85 or 80.
Okay.
80. It went Orca, Pizzicato, Pacific. So Orca was in my bedroom in 79 or whatever. Pizzicato was in 85 and Pacific was in 87 ish.
Okay.
And I mean, none of those things ever existed or do exist. They're just a name to put on there. I guess we pressed it 3 to 4 times. I don't know. I'm going to say 3, but it could be wrong.
Yeah, I could only find 3, but again, there could be a couple
probably
more out
3.
there. Now, do you still have all the old tapes? Actually, when it comes to Descendents, everything, do you have all the original tapes? Is there stuff missing?
That's a sad story that it'll bum me out to talk about it, and it might make people think that we're just completely inept. But suffice to say, some of our tapes are gone. Like nobody knows where they are.
Mm-hmm. Was there an event or an activity where something
No,
happened?
that's
or...
the thing. That's the whole thing. There never was an event. We never knew what we were doing. One problem with the whole South Bay, let's just call it the Descendents, Black Flag, SST Records era, was that we were constantly getting thrown out of wherever we had inhabited. They weren't apartments or houses. There was always some kind of a storefront where we had gone in and carpeted the walls up until we could practice. And we were just all sleeping on the floor in these practice rooms. And we'd have a few desks in there because we were trying to run the band like a sort of a little halfway business, even though we were just all, with no shower, no hot water, but there was always people coming over, and punkers and pink mohawks and girls coming in and out, and like probably, there's probably those environments, people are, bringing drugs around, whatever. And so not that any of us were into that stuff, but it was just part of that world at that point. And the cops would get wind of it and just come in and just literally throw us out on just the basis that we were punk, that was grounds enough. And so sometimes they would decide to do this when we were on tour, and we would come home and all our shit was gone. I mean, the biggest thing that I'm bummed out is like this Afghan that my mom made me when I was real young. It was a real pretty black and gray and red knitted Afghan, and it's just gone because the cops just fucking took all our shit away or whatever. So, and a couple of my old cool snare drums. So yeah, some of our tapes are just gone.
No. Okay. Well, when it comes to Milo Goes to College, are those tapes available, or those
No,
are
I got
also
those tapes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I got those tapes. I was just listening to those tapes yesterday because I was making Milo a couple of instrumental mixes to practice to, because we're changing our repertoire a little bit this year. So we're bringing in some songs that we've not played in a long time, and so I was making him some rough mixes to sing to.
Ooh.
To practice.
Oh, that'll be fun. He's going to have to get pretty high up there on some of those.
Well, the new record has a bunch of stuff where he's getting a high A, which is high A is the highest, he's ever gotten. Mm-hmm. Is a high A, and our new record has a bunch of those. Victim of Me and Shameless Halo have a high A, and also, yeah, like Gene is Dead has a pretty high note in it. And Good Things maybe has a high A. Yeah.
So going back just a little bit, just for a moment, Fat EP came out on New Alliance Records. How did Descendents get connected with New Alliance, and do you recall how many of those were made?
So this was all of these things that we're talking about. This was all in a very small little community. I mean, the tackle store was 2 blocks from the church where we practiced. The church was 2 blocks from my house, and so everything was close. And New Alliance was just Mike Watt's label, Mike Watt from the Minutemen, mm-hmm. and the going options would have been kind of like we do it again ourselves, or SST does it. Or then when Mike started his label, he was more enthusiastic about it. With SST, they were just having trouble getting money together to get releases out. And so if they said, yeah, we want to do a Saccharine Trust album or whatever, well, it might not come out for 2 years after you recorded it. But New Alliance was like, yeah, we'll do a Descendents record. And let's see, I can't remember how. I want to say my dad paid for part of it, and New Alliance paid for the rest. I honestly can't remember. But I mean, New Alliance and SST were just basically, it was just all part of the same gene pool.
Mm. It sounds like your dad was really supportive of you playing.
It's interesting. He reminds me of me in a way that he maybe wasn't the most glowing fan of any of it. He thought it was ridiculous. He thought I should just quit the band and go to college, and he was very vocal about that. But at the same time, at that kind of core level, father to son, he was like, well, I want to support my son in his endeavors, even though I think they're full of shit. So he kind of put his money where his mouth is, I guess you could say. He never said, oh yeah, you're a great drummer and you're going to go far. He was like, no, this is just noise. This is noise. It's like 3 chords. No one's ever going to like this, but still I'll help you. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. Whereas my mom was not in a position to help me financially at all, but she was very, very supportive. I mean, she's like, just loved the fact that I was playing drums and everything.
Okay. Well, they both showed their love in slightly different ways there.
In different ways. Yeah. Yeah. The older I get, the less I resent my father. I'm starting to see why he was how he was.
I think that's a journey that most of us go on. Yeah, it's beautiful you're able to do that. Now, when it comes to Milo Goes to College, the first copies of that came with a flyer. And then the flyer wasn't included in all the other ones. Do you recall those flyers?
Well, if flyer, do you just mean the lyric sheet?
Yes, yeah. The Xerox, the photocopy.
Well, we wrote the lyrics out, and it came as an insert inside it. And I mean, if those aren't in there now, well, that sucks, because that's like one of the coolest things is that we hand wrote the lyrics. Mm-hmm. Or did maybe Tony type his? We each put our lyrics like how we wanted to. So I wrote mine, and Frank, I think, wrote his. I don't know.
I'll have to review to see which ones are typed, which ones are written. But do you?
Well, that would be that. Maybe I should just have a PDF on our. Can you do that? Like, can you have that just available on your on your website or something? Or you can't do that on Facebook, though, right? You can't have a PDF on there.
Well, I'm sure there's a way to be able to do it.
You can have a link. You could have a link
sure.
to it.
If you want a scan of it, I'm happy to.
I'm computer illiterate.
Well, if you want a scan of it or anything, I've got a copy, so I'm happy to send you one. Do you recall the story?
Yeah. You email me that, and I'll forward you this email of me telling Epitaph that I don't know anything about records.
That's fine. I think I've just become your official archivist, because some copies came with that lyric sheet, and then all of a sudden they stopped coming with that lyric sheet. Do you recall that time, or Xeroxing those lyric sheets, or inserting them at all?
No, Mike Watt would have given those to the pressing plant, and they would have stuck them in there before they sealed them up.
Okay, all right. So we got to talk to Mike, find out why so many don't come with the lyric sheets.
Well, it's probably. Well, no, I mean, are you saying that New Alliance ones, some don't have the lyric sheet?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. See, I don't know. Okay, I don't know anything about that. That's a good question. I thought you meant that when SST re-released it, that they spaced out and didn't put it in there, and which I go, okay, yeah, it doesn't surprise me, but it does surprise me. Yeah, if there's some of the New Alliance ones got left out, but who knows? No, I mean, we didn't know what we were doing,
and that's part of the charm. Quite frankly, that's why I'm trying to piece some of these stories together, because it's, for instance, if a collector has a copy of Milo Goes to College, if it has the lyric sheet, then it's like double the price. So it's always a bit of a discussion whenever someone is talking about a Milo Goes to College. Does it have the lyric sheet or not? So not long after Milo Goes to College, you joined Black Flag, and Milo Goes to College started being distributed by SST. I'm assuming that was not a coincidence.
Well, no, it was. It's not like, oh, I'm in with the SST guys. No, I mean, we were all of us were sleeping on the same floor together. Mm-hmm. Black Flag and Descendents. Like, Black Flag and Descendents always shared a practice room, and I was always Black Flag had drummer problems. Okay. They couldn't hold a drummer, and even when they could hold a drummer, which was Robo, he kept getting deported to Colombia. So I would always play shows with them. So I mean, we were always together. Mm-hmm. The Descendents and Black Flag, we were always together. And but it was like by the time I joined Black Flag, and SST was they were just getting bigger and more organized, and they had more liquidity. And so when they said they wanted to start putting out records, well, it was cool, because I think we had always thought we would prefer to be with SST anyway. And then I think, Mike Watt was kind of, he was selling New Alliance or dissolving it or whatever. I honestly can't remember.
You were in Black Flag for several years. Of course, the albums My War, Slip It In, Family Man, a few others. That was also around the time where they were going through lawsuits with Unicorn Records. Do you recall much about that time?
I recall a lot about that time, because I was quite instrumental in getting us all through that. So they had us just jammed up, so we couldn't put out records, and they were killing our career. They did. They killed Black Flag. Unicorn, it did kill Black Flag. We rebounded from it, but by the time we were rebounded and started putting out records, we had evolved so much that it wasn't like a natural progression between Damaged and My War. There should have been 2 albums in between there, mm-hmm. But we were just jammed. We couldn't do anything. But my part in all that was, we found this lawyer that would let us work on the case ourselves, and he would just tell us what to do, and we would do all the grunt work and leg work, And I mean, we learned how to prepare motions and drafts and pleadings and process. And we learned, and I would even, in order to not have to pay the cost for a court stenographer or whatever you want to call it, like I would record the court things and then type the court hearings out myself. And me and Greg and Chuck would go up every day. We didn't have a car. We didn't have a van. We would take a city bus up to downtown LA and work in the law office all day. Like, we worked in the law office for like a year, every day, all three of us. And then I remember, even when it was that contempt of court thing, and Chuck and Greg got put in jail, and I worked at the lawyer, and I prepared a habeas corpus to get them out of jail. And so it was, these are times I'll never forget some of these things. Eventually we found a way out of that, but kind of the momentum of the band had been stifled by then. Just it's hard to fight that kind of negativity, and also the music had kind of really slowed down. I think there's a lot of marijuana going around, and more like stonery type things, stuff that I wasn't good at playing on drum. I'm not good at playing slow. I'm not good at it. I'm just better at playing at quick tempos. So I don't know. We did some cool things though. I mean, some of those records were like, they're like lily pads. Like, I think they had to happen in order for punk rock to kind of evolve in more interesting directions. We had to make some of those real strange records with even the instrumental one, like Family Man. I just think in the early 80s, punk rock became 100% formulaic. And so we were definitely trying to do something different. And I don't know how successful it all was, but I mean, I think sometimes the decision to do something different is almost more important than what the result happens to be when you try.
Yeah. You're the fish trying to jump onto land.
Yeah. So yeah. By the time we got all out of that, I think it was the momentum had been killed.
Did you leave Black Flag on good terms?
I did, but there was just too much. When I left, like, it was only a matter of time until the thing just disintegrated. I don't mean that I predicted it or anything like that, or that I jumped ship. I just mean there were so many weird personality things that were happening, and they weren't things that were, essentially unresolvable, but they're things that when you have that kind of level of cabin fever where you're all just sleeping on the floor together, little things become big things. And there got to be too many little things. And I don't mean between me and them. I mean between each of them and each other, and me, all of it. And so they held it together to, they didn't do another record after I left, but they held it together to do 2 more tours. I feel like it was mainly just to get Greg's parents paid off, who we had borrowed well over $100,000 from. To during the legal times, and pay the legal bills and so forth. So we just the court case destroyed Black Flag. Yeah.
So after Black Flag, Descendents record a few more records. Again, someone said, I think in Filmage, the model of Descendents is predicated on Milo leaving the band every few years. So he comes back. There's a few other records recorded. Then he moves on again in all forms. You had several different singers throughout all those all records. Do you still have the tapes? Are you still able to do compilations of all? Do you control that material?
No. It's most of the all stuff is the master recordings are either the property of Epitaph or SST, or Cruise. Cruise is just SST. We have some rights to some of it. Basically, the extent of our rights to do stuff with it was that all comp that we released. That's got like 20 songs on it. We remixed them. That was as much latitude as I had in that area. It was to do that.
Now, that compilation you're talking about, the CD is actually very difficult to find. It's a $50 CD now, if you could find it.
Hello?
Yeah?
I have like 2,000 of them sitting in my garage.
Those CDs, the one with Alroy looking in the microscope, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you better up your insurance on your garage.
So what do I do with them? Who wants them? I mean, who is it that wants to buy these? Let me allow them to buy them. I don't want them in my garage.
Oh, put them for sale on on Descendents store or something. Get them out there somehow. Surely you guys have some sort of e-store that you could put them on?
We do, yeah. On Kings Road merch, I know they have them on there.
Yeah,
because I've shipped them. A few thousand before.
Yeah. Okay.
It's weird how the collector world is so different from like the normal guy world. So people are telling me, "Oh yeah, I just paid $100 for whatever vinyl," and I'm like, "Really? Well, I got a big fucking pile of it here that I can't do anything with." I guess one of us would have to start swimming in those circles, but I would feel weird selling a record for a whole bunch of money. That just doesn't seem right to me. This is where I'm really maybe ignorant or contra the general flow of this whole interview. Is I don't know, to me, like there's no record's worth $5,000. It just isn't. Like like scarcity and value. To me, they're oftentimes there's a justifiable correlation there, but how could Ride the Wild be worth $500? I mean, it's just not, it's not. And so, that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think it could go back to people who that record meant a lot to them in their youth. And when they revisit that record, it brings them back the memory. So it's not necessarily just the value of the record itself, but it's the memory that it brings you.
I think I know why my perspective on this is so contrarian. I'm not a collector. Like I have a collection of no things. I'm what you'd call a purger. Like I'm constantly trying to get rid of things. That's why, like when you talked about the all CD, I'm like, great. Where do I back up the truck? Get them out of here. Like I have no interest in like holding on to things. I just don't.
By the way, I just went on to the Kings Road merch, and they do not have that all CD on there. So I'll bet you if you put it up there for $20 each, you'd sell quite a few.
Well, I know they had it up at one point.
Yeah.
So I'll ask them about it. Maybe they ran out and all is just so low on their radar that they never bothered to reorder it. Because I sure would like to get these out of my garage.
So, do you think there'll ever be another all compilation, or that's the one? And
well, that's I don't know. I guess that one seemed like a good idea at the time, but then we did. What did we do? 2 studio records after that.
Mass Nerder,
and I don't know. It bothers me when people have like 9 different greatest hits records. Jazz is the worst for that. Where you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that kind of bugs me too. I guess the whole like I guess if you're a collector, that's cool. All the different repackages and different artwork. But to me, it's just like the Pistols, man. They sold that same record to people 20 different ways. I don't believe in it.
So I think that's a way of saying we want more music, but we were not patient enough to wait for it. Again, the model of Descendents is predicated on Milo leaving the band every few years. Is that model still relevant? Will there be more All?
We've been really focused on Descendants. We haven't done any All stuff. I haven't done anything with my band, Only Crime, in a long while. We've all been really focused on Descendants because I guess there's maybe a little bit of the kind of strike while the iron is hot idea. I mean, I don't know. Descendants has never been like the hot new thing at all, but I mean, there seems to somehow right around the time I came out of my brain surgery, there seemed to just be this inexplicable and unexpected surge of interest in Descendants. And so we were kind of like, oh, wow, people really want to see us play and they want to hear new music. Oh, this is fun. Okay. I like this, you tend to go where the positive energy is, and that's where the positive energy is. Whereas like the last time All was touring, in 1 year, we went from, whatever year this was, we went from playing the Warped Tour to opening for Less Than Jake to opening for Lagwagon to opening for Pennywise to opening for the Ataris to me saying, guess what? I can't feed my kids and do this anymore. So if this is really how little people like All, well, fuck them. Because obviously we put a tremendous amount of effort into the music and the arrangements. I mean, as far as the technical accomplishments, the technical musical accomplishments of my life, most of them lie on those All records. Mm-hmm. But it seemed to be not underappreciated, but not appreciated enough to persist. And then who would we be opening for after the Ataris? I mean, where do you go from there?
It must have been incredibly discouraging because really, at the end of the day, All is Descendants with a different singer. So why is there this love for one and this, I don't want to say disdain, but apathy toward another?
I don't look at it that way because I didn't expect anybody to like Descendants, and I don't expect that even 1 out of 10 people who happen to like Descendants, I don't expect them to feel like they should like All. That's not logical. I mean, and the singer is such a big part of it. Even with All, having had 3 different singers, people definitely, if they prefer one of the singers, they may not like the other 2 very much. And then there's that small contingency of people that just like our band. They like it with Milo, they like it with Scott, they like it with Dave, they like it with Chad. They just love it, and that's great. Those are great. I don't expect. It's like I don't expect more than that. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, it was hard to be out on tour. But not hard to be, but it wasn't practical when like several of us were having kids. Mm-hmm. Several of us had kids to feed. And it's like, well, you can't really feed your kids if your band is making $250 a night and 100 of it's going into the gas tank. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was like, okay, I guess I'll start producing more records and, not doing that because it's just not going to work. When I was single, it just didn't matter. I could just sleep on the floor and who cares? I didn't care. I never care. I don't care about things. I don't have nice clothes. I don't have stuff, I don't care about it. But then, yeah, I think once you got a family to take care of it, it sort of just changes the game rules a little bit for better or for worse.
Absolutely. You're not the only one that suffers through those sort of challenges.
Yeah.
So after your surgery, it seems like you have a bit of a new lease on life. Lots of shows. The fire seems to be rekindled. Are you a man on a mission?
When we last saw our heroes, and you're talking about filmage, really. Mm-hmm. You're kind of referring to that. Yeah, I mean, I was given a second chance because I was basically almost dead, and I was given a second chance, and that has propelled me and made my made my middle age, I think, just a lot more cooler. My perception of it is in a better space than it otherwise would have been had I never become sick and had I never gotten better from it. But to cast a little shadow on that, I have had 4 surgeries since filmage. At a certain point, it's like I don't like to publicize my health stuff because I just think, okay, I mean, it was fine the one time, and I appreciate that people care about my condition and everything. But so since then I have had an open lung surgery. I have had a triple bypass open heart surgery. I have had a knee surgery. I have had an eye surgery, and I'm about to have 6 months of radiation on my brain. So yeah, I feel great, but it's like the health struggles. The older we all get, we face our mortality, we face health troubles, and I'm no different. And I'm facing new ones each year.
Okay, so again, strike while the iron is hot, while you have the ability to tour and record, make the most of it.
There's a little bit of that, but I gotta say, I mean, I'm loving practicing and playing, and none of the things that I just mentioned have debilitated me. I mean, for instance, my heart's functioning great now after the triple bypass, and my lungs, well, I had to get those pulmonary embolisms out of my lungs, those that have been in there since filmage. They were in there and I couldn't breathe. So it's easier now, not harder. I'm in a better state. And then, my knee blew out because I was basically going and doing kind of like a CrossFit sort of thing. And I just went a little too hard and I blew my knee out. So I had a knee surgery. So no, I'm going for it. I'm not like hobbling around. But I just meant, life has its ups and downs. And then this radiation, this is just going to be there's a little thing growing up against my optic nerve, which is like impairing my vision in my left eye. And so they're going to just nuke this thing so that my, vision doesn't get any worse.
Okay. Is it
I'm good.
Is it a routine thing, or is there a bit of risk with it?
It's pretty routine. It's pretty routine. It's pretty low risk. The scariest of all the surgeries I've had was for sure the open lung surgery, which was 2.5 years ago, to remove the blood clots from my lungs. They had been in there, at that point they had been in there for 5 years, and it was getting more and more difficult to breathe. And this particular surgery is one where they open you up, and then they open your chest up, and then they commence to cool you down for 2.5 hours, and they put ice on your head, and they cool you down so far that they are then able to take you off life support. So you're dead, you're flatlined while they go in and remove the blood clot and blood clot scar tissue from your lungs. They have to do it. There can be no blood flowing when they do that. So you can't even be on life support.
Do they use like an ice pick and an ice cream scoop? Is that how they do it?
Yeah, it's crazy. If you want to get your mind blown, look up pulmonary thromboendarterectomy, because it's crazy. They even just say it right on a new surgery, where a new life-saving surgery where the patient has to die first, because they actually flatlined me, for 30 minutes while he just went in and got those out of there. But so no, I'm fine. Everything's cool. I mean, I have no complaints. We're practicing regularly, and I'm going to the gym and trying to eat well and I feel great. I mean, my outlook has never been better.
I think I just got a vision for a new Milo T-shirt of him like in a refrigerator while they're operating on him. That's the name of the new album, Pulmonary Inthro, whatever.
Yeah, pulmonary thromboendarterectomy. Yeah, it's funny. Everybody likes to make like Descendents puns about all my various health things. And it's funny, we put that song out called, No Fat Burger or whatever. Mm-hmm. Milo wrote it But I mean, right when it came out, I did have a triple bypass for real.
Heart attack with a triple bypass. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Milo seems to be making himself available pretty much within reason. Whenever the band needs to go out, needs to do things. Will there be more recordings?
Yeah, we've already recorded a few more. And the guy, Milo and Stefan, have a head start. They've each got a handful of new songs. I haven't written any yet. And Carl was at practice yesterday. Carl was saying he's got a handful that he's almost done with. So as usual, I'm the laggard. I'm always the laggard. I think I'm becoming curmudgeonly in my old age. I think I'm going to become a shut-in, one of those type weirdos. But also I'm so critical. I'm so critical of just, it takes a lot for me to like a song. And so that's in as a listener. And then so as a songwriter, it takes a lot. It just seems like it's becoming more and more difficult for me to please myself when I write something. And so then I don't ever bring anything to the table. Like I always bring my stuff in at the last minute because I'm not ever satisfied with myself.
Well, I think in some ways that's healthy because you're trying to push your limits. You're trying to reach that next level in terms of songwriting, or trying to do more, than what you feel is average. Does that hold you back? Are you okay with that, or does that just frustrate the hell out of you?
No, it just is. And if you circle back to Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town, it's kind of like I have this joke of like, if nobody dies, then I can't write a song.
Yeah.
Because the fact is, I just don't have a good imagination. I've only written 2 fictional songs in my life. All of the rest have been 100% documentary, my diary, if you will, like our records, my songs on our records. That's my life diary. And so, yeah, it takes, like, I don't get very happy with lyrics unless they really, unless it was like life or death, man. If I don't write about this, I'm going to just hang myself, this kind of thing. If it's not like that, I tend to dismiss it.
Mm-hmm.
Or I just tend to never come up with it in the first place. Like I was very happy with Spineless and Scarlet Red because that was so real to me, and it was such a huge just factor on my life and my family and what we went through and all that it was like, yeah, this is really what I have to write about. And I know people will never listen to this song and go, oh, it's filler, it's just some trite lyric. It's like, no, this is real for me. And that's all I have to go by.
One of my favorite Descendents songs of all time is Thank You. Who were you thinking of when you wrote that song?
Well, Carl wrote it, and the idea is that it's that band, whatever that band is to you, that's who it's about.
Mm-hmm. Like
we weren't thinking of a band. It's that band, and it's different for each person when they hear it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But obviously he was thinking of some band when he wrote it.
No, he was thinking of whatever that band is for each person.
Okay.
Yeah, not one band, but just whoever that band is to you, that's who it's about.
So, Bill, it's been a real honor to have you on the show. I'd love to have you on again. I'd love to hear more road stories and more about your incredible career in life. For the audience, please turn your attention to Facebook.com/The Descendents or Twitter.com/Descendents or Descendents Online. Check out the tour dates. Maybe there'll be some all CDs up there that you could pick up as well. And look, Bill, I took my 8-year-old son Eli to see your band. He loves the band. He and I share a love of Descendents and all. And I thought he was going to be one of the only kids there. And turns out there was about 30, 40 kids when I saw you guys in Sydney, under 10. Is that a unique thing, or are there a surprising number of kids at Descendants shows?
It's a surprising number to me, yeah. I mean, without sounding falsely humble, I mean, any number of any demography is surprising to me. I mean, the fact that anybody likes our band, well, that's the most thrilling thing in the world. then the idea that it's, you know, that it's not just a bunch of, you know, 45-year-olds or whatever. Well, that keeps it interesting. It means that either these kids, that it strikes a chord with them, or that their parents, that we were a band important enough to their parents that their parents was like, yeah, you have to come with me and see this. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And either way, it's good.
Well, and you know, there's the other option there too, that it's just good music, and good music is timeless, and it's fun, and it touches people of all. It doesn't need to be recorded in 2018 to reach a now young audience. It could still inspire, and people can still enjoy listening to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm noticing 3 generations at the shows, which is, it surprised the hell out of me.
All right. Well, Bill, I do want to say thank you for playing the way you play.
Yeah, thank you. It's been my pleasure. And I'm glad you guys invited me to do this.
All righty. Thanks so much, Bill. And good luck to you, Carl, Steven, and of course Milo on the 2018 Descendents tour. You can find out more at facebook.com/The Descendents. Also, huge thanks to Chip Callback of chipcallback.com, the photographer that supplied the great pictures of Bill we used for this episode. I've also uploaded a scan of the Milo Goes to College lyric sheet that Bill and I discussed today. Apparently, it only came in the first 1,000 or so records from 1982. It's highly collectible, so if you have a copy of Milo Goes to College and it doesn't have the lyric sheet, well, you could download the file from thevinylguide.com on this episode page, number 118, and print yourself a copy. Alrighty, well, that's it for this week's episode of The Vinyl Guide. Easter's coming up, so I'm taking next week off, but, you know, there's 117 other episodes of The Vinyl Guide that you can enjoy. Again, make sure you get our apps and enjoy them from there. That's the easiest way. And we'll be back with a whole slew of new episodes shortly. So, until we talk next time, keep spinning. Cheers.